The mother-in-law's milestone celebration was set to be a lively feast with a multitude of relatives and friends. The young wife sat patiently at the table until she began to feel unwell and excused herself to the restroom. However, she never returned. The mother-in-law's voice rang out, "And where is your wife? Who is going to pay?" The guests looked bewildered. Her husband tried to reach her by phone, but his calls went unanswered. The festivity devolved into a scandal. At 2 o'clock in the morning, an enraged group stormed into the young couple's apartment. "Hello, dear listeners. It's a pleasure to welcome you to my channel. I have an interesting new story for you today. Enjoy listening." Marina learned to force a smile through toothaches as early as the 3rd month of living with Igor. It was then that his mother, Lydia Borisovna, paid an unscheduled visit and stayed for dinner. Then for breakfast, then for lunch. The keys to their apartment resided in her handbag, nestled beside her powder compact and a daily updated list of grievances against her daughter-in-law. "Marinka, why didn't you salt the soup?" the mother-in-law would say, wrinkling her nose. "Igorek is accustomed to proper food." Igor, meanwhile, remained silent, engrossed in his phone. Marina would add salt, smile, and endure. She worked as a nurse at a clinic, earning $38,000. Igor, a manager at a construction firm, earned $45,000. They rented a 1-bedroom apartment for $22,000 and each month presented a mathematical puzzle without a solution. Lydia Borisovna worked in an archive, but her salary was never mentioned. Instead, she adored recounting how difficult it was for her to live alone. "My pension is small. I can barely cover the utilities," she would sigh as Igor handed her another envelope. "My son, you are my only one." Who else will look after their mother? Marina calculated in her head. 10,000 plus groceries, which the mother-in-law routinely borrowed from their refrigerator, claiming it was temporary, minus another 5. She attempted to discuss it with Igor, but he waved her off. "Come on, she's my mother. She's having a hard time." It was easy for Marina. Lydia Borisovna always appeared at the most inconvenient times. When they planned to go to the movies, she would call, feigning distress. "Igorek, I feel unwell. Come over." They would drop everything and rush across town, only to find the mother-in-law in her robe, flushed and holding a glass of wine. "I'm feeling better now. Perhaps it was just a sudden spike in blood pressure. Sit down, have some tea." When Marina attempted to prepare something special, the mother-in-law seemed to sense it instinctively, arriving unannounced, using her own keys to enter, and immediately launching into criticism. "The meat is overcooked. The potatoes are underdone. You really should have chosen a different variety. I always made the borscht differently," she'd say, taking the skillet. "Here, let me do it." Igor would smile. "Mom, you're just like always." And he would eat the re-prepared dish with gusto. Marina sat staring at her plate, feeling something slowly turning to stone within her. In the winter, the mother-in-law fell ill. Not seriously, just a common cold, but she blew it up into a tragedy of cosmic proportions. For 2 weeks, Igor rushed to her place every evening, bringing medicine and groceries. Marina offered to go along, but Lydia Borisovna refused. "No need, dear Marina. You're already tired from work. Igorek will manage on his own." She would then add in a lowered voice, but loud enough for Marina to hear, "My son, it's good that you're so caring, unlike some." March proved particularly challenging. Marina's salary was delayed, rent was due, and Igor had again given his mother money for some urgent medication. When Marina tried to protest, he exploded, "What, do you want my mother to die?" "I want us to be able to live normally," she shouted. "We're barely making ends meet ourselves. She's my mother," Igor stated emphatically, "and I will help her, whether you like it or not." Marina fell silent. That night, they went to bed on opposite sides of the mattress, facing away from each other. April, May. Lydia Borisovna's demands escalated. She no longer came just to visit, but with specific objectives. Marinka, I need you to wash the curtains. Your machine is better. Or, I need the vacuuming done. My back hurts. Or, cook lunch for a few days ahead. Igorek, tell your wife to help her mother. Marina helped. Washing, ironing, cooking, packing meals into containers. Lydia Borisovna would leave with full bags, not even offering a thank you. A couple of days later, she would call, Marinochka, could you make that borscht again? It seems a bit too salty this time. One evening in June, as the mother-in-law was once again on their sofa, criticizing the new wallpaper. What a dull color. It looks like a hospital. Marina felt like she was suffocating. She stood up, went out onto the balcony, closed the door behind her, and simply stood there, gripping the railing. Below, the city bustled. Lights flickered in other buildings where other people lived with their own problems. Perhaps they also have mother-in-law vampires, she thought, managing a wry smile through her welling tears. Igor followed her, putting an arm around her shoulders. Don't worry, Mom will leave soon. Igor, we need to talk, Marina said quietly. Seriously, talk about boundaries, about our lives. Later. Now. He kissed her on the forehead. Not in front of Mom. Always later. And later never came. At the end of July, Lydia Borisovna announced her 55th birthday was in August, and she wanted to celebrate it in style at a restaurant. I only turned 55 once in my life, she said, beaming. Igorek, you'll help organize it, and Marina should participate too. Participate meant one thing: pay. Igor looked at his mother with adoring eyes. Of course, Mom, we'll arrange everything. Right, Marina? Marina nodded. What choice did she have? The next 3 weeks became a nightmare. Lydia Borisovna called every day with specific requests. Which restaurant, the menu, the number of guests, the flowers, the cake. Marina was torn between her job and orchestrating this celebration. Igor offered help, but his assistance was limited to phrases like, Mom, Marina will handle it, or Marina, you're so capable. The restaurant cost $150,000. They didn't have that kind of money. Igor took out a loan. Marina borrowed from her parents. Lydia Borisovna graciously approved the choice of venue and menu, but chided them. Well, you could have found something better, but all right, it will do. On August 9th, the day of the Jubilee, Marina woke up with a migraine. Her head was splitting, making her want to disappear. But the celebration was already paid for, guests invited, there was no turning back. They arrived at the restaurant at 6 in the evening. Lydia Borisovna presided over the head table in a new dress, also purchased with their money, receiving congratulations. Guests arrived. Her colleagues, distant relatives, neighbors, former classmates. About 30 people, no less. Marina sat next to Igor, forcing a smile. The migraine worsened with every minute. The chandelier light hurt her eyes. The music pounded her head. Voices blurred into an unintelligible drone. Marinka, why so pale? Igor asked. My head hurts. Just bear with it a little longer, okay? He stroked her hand. For Mom's sake. For Mom's sake. Always for Mom's sake. At 7:30, when the guests were already quite merry and tipsy, and Lydia Borisovna was delivering another toast, mentioning her beloved son, there was, of course, no gratitude expressed towards her daughter-in-law. Marina realized she would either scream or faint. She quietly stood up, nodded to Igor as if to say she was going to the restroom, and left the hall. The corridor was empty and cool. Marina leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. Her head was spinning, and nausea twisted her stomach. She made her way to the restroom, washed her face with cold water, and looked in the mirror. The reflection was frightening. A pale face, red eyes, and gaunt cheeks. When had she last slept properly, eaten, or truly smiled? What am I doing here? She asked her reflection, and suddenly everything became clear. Marina took out her phone, called a taxi, and sent Igor a short message. I'm not feeling well. I've gone home. Sorry. She silenced her phone and exited through the service entrance onto the street. The taxi arrived in 5 minutes. The driver asked if everything was all right. Clearly, her appearance wasn't inspiring optimism. Marina nodded and asked him to drive faster. At home, she took a painkiller, lay down in the darkness on the bed, and for the first time in weeks, felt relief. Silence, peace. No voices, no demands, no reproaches. She didn't think about what would happen next. She simply lay there and breathed. Time passed. An hour, 2. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Calls, messages. Marina didn't answer. She knew what was happening there. The mother-in-law was having a fit. Igor was trying to calm everyone down. The guests were exchanging glances and whispering, "And where is your wife?" Around 2 in the morning, the door burst open with a bang. Igor and Lydia Borisovna stumbled into the apartment, drunk, agitated, and ready for a confrontation. "Marina!" Igor yelled, fumbling in the darkness. "Where are you?" Lydia Borisovna shrieked about a shameless girl and the disgrace she had brought upon the entire restaurant. Igor reached for the light switch and flicked it on. The light hit his eyes, and he faltered. "What's wrong with you?" Marina was sitting on the bed. She wasn't crying, wasn't shouting, just sitting. But in those few hours, something within her had irrevocably broken, and it showed on her face. Empty, glassy eyes, contorted features, a strange, crooked smile. In her hands was a half-packed suitcase. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Igor stammered. Marina looked at him, then at her mother-in-law, and laughed softly, almost silently. "I'm leaving," she said in a level, calm voice. "That's enough. It's all over." "Leaving? How can you leave?" Lydia Borisovna stepped forward. "You abandoned us at the restaurant. The bill isn't fully paid. All the guests were waiting. I was humiliated." "The bill," Marina repeated. "Yes, the bill." She stood up, walked to the nightstand, pulled out a stack of papers, and handed them to Igor. "Here, I've calculated. Over the past year, your mother spent $212,000. That's without the Jubilee. With the Jubilee, it's $362,000. And you spent money on my birthday present." Igor stared at the papers, his face paler. "Marina, what does this have to do with anything?" "It has everything to do with it," she interrupted, "because I'm not doing this anymore. I won't live for someone who doesn't value me, my money, or my time. I won't smile when I'm being humiliated. I won't tolerate it." "How dare you?" Lydia Borisovna shrieked. "I am his mother." Marina turned to her. "You selfish woman, you drain everything you can from your son, and you were draining me. But now, enough." The mother-in-law gasped in indignation and raised her hand, as if to strike or push. Marina intercepted her hand, squeezing it tightly. "Don't," she said very quietly. "Don't make it worse." There was something in her voice that made Lydia Borisovna step back. "Igor," Marina turned to her husband, "I'm going to my parents. We'll get a divorce. I don't want to split the apartment, the money, anything. Just let me go, and you can live happily ever after with your mommy." "Marinka, wait!" Igor's voice trembled. "We can talk. We can figure this out." "No, it's too late." She zipped up her suitcase, grabbed her jacket, and walked past both of them to the door. "Wait!" Lydia Borisovna cried. "Who's going to pay the rest at the restaurant?" Marina turned. The birthday girl, as it should be, and walked out. Behind her, a scream erupted. Lydia Borisovna was sobbing. Igor was shouting something, but Marina no longer heard. She descended the stairs, and with each step, she felt lighter. Lighter to breathe, lighter to think, lighter to live. Her parents greeted her silently, without questions. Her mother hugged her, led her to her old room, and tucked her in, like when she was a child. Marina fell asleep instantly, a deep, sound sleep without dreams. The divorce was finalized quickly. Igor offered no resistance, apparently realizing he had nothing left to lose. Marina found a job at another clinic, closer to her parents' home. She rented a small studio apartment and started seeing a psychologist, sifting through the wreckage. One day in December, standing in line at a supermarket, she heard a familiar voice. She turned. It was Lydia Borisovna, older, thinner, in a faded jacket. She was rummaging through her wallet, trying to scrape together enough for bread and milk. 30 rubles short, the cashier said. Just a moment, just a moment. The mother-in-law frantically emptied her change. Marina looked at her. No anger, no pity, just emptiness. She took out a banknote and handed it to the cashier. "Add this from me." Lydia Borisovna's head snapped up. She recognized Marina and turned pale. "Goodbye, Marina," Marina said, and turned away. Outside, it was freezing. Snow crunched underfoot. The air smelled of winter and freedom. Marina walked to the bus stop, heading towards her small, cramped, but undeniably hers home, and smiled. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A message from Igor. "Mom is sick. I can't afford her medicine. Could you—" Marina deleted the message without finishing it, blocked the number, and never looked back.